Welcome, dear students. Myself, Geeta Kadam, and today we are going to learn about the second chapter in history, that is Europe and India. In this module, we will be seeing the following topics. First, period of Renaissance. Second, religious reform movement. Third, geographical discoveries. Fourth, intellectual revolution in Europe. Fifth, revolution in political sphere. Sixth, American War of Independence. And seventh, French Revolution. Let us start with the introduction first. During the modern period, the various happenings in Europe had its impact on India. Therefore, while studying the period of modern Indian history, we have to study the events happening in Europe during this period. Let us start with the first point, that is the period of Renaissance. The Renaissance was an important event in European history. The last phase of medieval period from 13th century to till 16th century in Europe is known as a period of Renaissance. The Renaissance was a cultural movement that initially began in Florence city in Italy, and later it spread throughout the Europe. During the Renaissance, people experienced changes in art, learning, and many other things. Prior to Renaissance, Europe experienced the medieval times, and that medieval times in Europe were known as the Dark Ages. So, why that medieval time in Europe were known as Dark Ages? Because that time people were suffered with war, famine, diseases, and many other things. And that's why many people were disturbed. They disliked this. When the Renaissance started, actually the modern period started. And that time the humanists emerged. But what is meant by Renaissance? Let us see. Renaissance means change. Renaissance means rebirth or revival. Revival of the Greek and Roman tradition who ruled in Europe. Renaissance in the field of art, architecture, philosophy, etc. The new ideas, the new values were put forth during that time. So that time is very important for the Europeans, because the modern period was started in Europe during that time. During this period, Reformation, religious reform movement, and geographical discoveries, these three things laid the foundation of the modern era. Hence, this period is known as the Age of Renaissance. During the Renaissance, humanitarianism was given a great impetus. Humanitarianism means the doctrine that people's duty is to promote the human welfare. And impetus means encouragement. There was a change in the outlook of treating each other as a human being. Instead of religion, now man become a center point of all ideologies. Ideologies means system of all ideas and ideals. The reform movement spread to all sectors of human life. The sentiments and emotions of human beings found expressions in the art and literature. Literature was produced in local languages for the understanding of common people. During 1450 AD, Johannes Gutenberg from Germany he discovered the printing press. We can see his photograph on our slide. Due to this discovery of printing press, the new ideas, the new concept, new knowledge which reached to all sections of society. So the invention and use of printing press in Europe was very important for the Renaissance. Now the very important person during the Renaissance period was Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo is recognized as an all-round personality of the period of Renaissance. He was well versed in the different branches of science and art. He had mastery over varied subjects such as sculpture, architecture, mathematics, engineering, music, astronomy, etc. But he became a world renowned as a painter. His paintings of Mona Lisa and the Last Supper become immortal. Among his many masterpieces, Leonardo painted one of the best known portraits in the world, and that is the Mona Lisa. The woman in that portrait seems so real that many writers have tried to explain the thoughts behind her smile. Beside Mona Lisa, the other painting of Leonardo's, The Last Supper, and it shows the personalities of Jesus' disciples through the facial expressions. We can see both of that pictures in our slide. Beside as a painter, Leonardo's 19 notebooks include the studies of the human circulatory system and plans for a type of aircraft and submarine. See, his contributions for different that fields, he play a very important role during the period of Renaissance, and that's why he was a important person for Renaissance period. Now the second point is religious reform movement. Religious reform movement means reformation, also called Protestant Reformation. The religious revolution that took place in the Western Church in the 16th century. But why and how this religious reform movement means Protestant movement was happened in Europe? What is the reason behind it? Let us see. The independent intellectual attacked the old religious ideologies of Roman Catholic Church. The Christian priests were taking advantage of the ignorance of people and were indulged in unnecessary rituals. Indulge means enjoyed to excess. Now they looted the people in the name of religion. Means the priests were looted the common people on the name of religion. And in 16th century, because of the corruption in the Catholic Church, some people saw that the way it worked needed to change. People like Erasmus, Martin Luther, John Calvin, they saw the corruption and they tried to stop it. And that time Bible was only printed in Latin language. The common people did not understand this Latin language. Martin Luther was the first person to translate the Bible into German language. Beside that, because of the recent invention of printing press, which helped to spread the awareness of churches' abuses. Martin Luther posting of the 95 Theses at Wittenberg is seen as a start of Protestant Reformation. Now, many people to become a to the protest. Many other reformers came to the front, and finally, the movement which started against these old religious ideologies and unnecessary rituals is known as religious reform movement, or we call it Protestant movement. Now, due to this movement, human freedom and rationalism gain importance. Now, this Protestant Reformation led to modern democracy, individualism, civil rights, and many other modern values which we cherish today. Now, the third point is geographical discoveries. In 1453 AD, the Ottoman Turks conquered Constantinople. It means today's Istanbul, and which was the capital of Byzantine Empire. That overland trade routes joining Asia and Europe went through this city. Since the Turk blocked this route, and therefore there was a need of finding alternative trade routes for the European countries to reach Asia. And this led to a new phase of geographical discoveries. With the discovery of new sea routes began a new era of trade between Europe and Asia. Many traders came forward to trade with eastern countries through the sea routes. Let us see about some important European sailors. During 15th century, European sailors went on expedition to discover sea route to India. In 1487 AD, Bartholomew Diaz, a Portuguese sailor, began his expedition in search of India. But he reached the tip of African continent, which we now know as a Cape of Good Hope. In 1492 AD, Christopher Columbus set on his journey to India by sailing towards west, but reached on the eastern coast of the continent of America. And in 1498 AD, Portuguese sailor Vasco da Gama managed to sail past the Cape of Good Hope and reached the Indian coast in Calicut. Now the fourth point is intellectual revolution in Europe. Due to the changes during the Renaissance period, Europe proceeded from medieval period to modern period. The intellectual revolution took place in the same period. And now society starts stepping out of the past ignorance and blind faith. Now people started to think logically. The traditional knowledge, old customs, traditions were challenged, and they were seen from a critical point of view. These changes are known as intellectual revolution. On that, the principle of observing and testing reality in search of objective truth introduced a new way of thinking about the world. Intellectual revolution gave the speed to the scientific discoveries in Europe. The new kinds of scientific activity emerged by Newton, Galileo, Copernicus, etc. So, intellectual revolution, it's very important. Because of that, Europe now started to move towards the modern period. Now the fifth point is revolution in political spheres. In the beginning of modern period in Europe, many political changes took place. Due to the various revolutionary events during 18th as well as the 19th century, this period is known as the Age of Revolutions. The period is noted for the change from absolute monarchies to representative government. Absolute monarchies means complete king's rule, and representative government means a democratic government, or the people which we are selected, they are governing the place or governing the nation. For that we can take the example of England. During that time there was a development of parliamentary democracy in England. There was a change in the form of cabinet system. The Bill of Rights was passed by the Parliament of England, and according to that Bill of Rights, the powers of the king were limited and the sovereignty of Parliament was established. Sovereignty means supreme power. It means what? The king's power became limited and the parliament or the democratic power were increased. So this was a change. Beside that, influenced by the new ideas of enlightenment, the American Revolution is usually considered the starting point of the Age of Revolution. And it inspired the French Revolution also, and then it rapidly spread to the rest of Europe. We can see that American Revolution in our next point. Now the sixth point is American War of Independence. The American War of Independence was fought during 1775 to till 1783 AD, and it was fought between the Kingdom of Great Britain and her 13 colonies in America, and which was resulting in the overthrow of British rule in the colonies and establishment of the new nation that was the United States of America. Let us see why and how this war was happened and how the country United States of America was born. But before that, do you know who discovered the continent of America at first? Yes, Amerigo Vespucci. And following to him, Columbus, he also reached the eastern coast of America. With the discovery of America, now European countries turned their attention toward this continent. The imperialist European countries took control of the different regions of America. Imperialist European countries means some of the European countries want to expand their country's power beyond their country. They want to show their supremacy. So these European countries took control of some parts of America and they established their colonies. England was also established their 10 colonies on the east coast of America. Initially, England had nominal domination over these colonies, but later English Parliament led oppressive restrictions and put the burden of heavy taxes on these American colonies. When the people in America were knew about that taxes, they were started to revolt against this exploitation. England declared war to suppress these colonies. So the American colonies organized the army under the leadership of George Washington. The war began. Finally, colonies won the war against England, and this full event is known as the American War of Independence. After this war, a new nation known as United States of America, we also call it USA, was born. It had a fundamental government, written constitution, and was based on the principle of democracy. And George Washington was a first president of USA. Now the seventh and the last point in this video is the French Revolution. The French Revolution is one of the most important events in human history. The French Revolution was a period of far-reaching social political upheaval in France. Upheaval means a sudden change. We can also say that French Revolution was a turning point in the history of France. During this period, there was a social inequality in France. The French society divided into the three classes. First and second class people, they were called the upper class people, and they spent the luxurious types of life. And the third class people were the common people, and they actually suffered the burden of heavy taxes. Now, because of rising of that social economic inequality, unmanageable national debt, and political mismanagement, these were some of the reasons what created the aggression against the rulers in the minds of common peoples. And because of that, all the things, finally, in 1789 AD, the people of France revolted against that uncontrolled and unjust monarchy and established a democratic type of government, or we call it a republic government. And this event in France was known as a French Revolution. Now, French Revolution gave to the world the three important values, and they are liberty, equality, and fraternity. Liberty means independence. Everyone have a right to spend their independent type of life. Equality means equal status or equal rights. We should not differentiate the people. Everyone are equal. And fraternity means a mutual support within a society or within a group. We also call it, we behave like a universal brotherhood. So these ideas of liberty and democratic rights were the most important legacy of the French Revolution. Legacy means a heritage or property. But these values were not only important for the French but also the whole world. The French Revolution inspired the struggling nations of Asia and Africa who were under the colonial rule. We can take the example of our India also. Our Indian freedom struggle also inspired by the French Revolution. See, like French people revolted against the unjust and uncontrolled monarchy. Similar like that, the Indian peoples were also revolted against the unjust and exploited British rule. And that's why French Revolution was important not only for France but also the entire world. And it was a turning point in the history of world. In the world history, among the political revolutions, the American War of Independence and French Revolution have a very important place. Thank you.